Hello and welcome to a new live English lesson. And before people come and until people come, I'd like to give a brief introduction about what we're doing in this series. So this series of videos tackles English grammar. As you can see, this is lesson 4. And all these lessons are entitled Live English Lessons, and they fall under a particular category, which is grammar. So, in the past episode or in the past lesson, we talked about the most basic, the most fundamental, and the most important verb in English, and that was verb to be, with all its forms and in all tenses, past, present, and its forms being past participle or bare infinitive, or which is also called the base form, or the ing form of it, which is being. And today, as the title of the video dictates, we shall be talking about one of English tenses, and that's the present continuous or the present progressive tense. So, in English, we have 12 tenses. What is a tense? A tense is normally being present or past or future. So, when you are performing a certain action, you may be performing it in the present, or it's something that you will perform in the future, or it's something that you have already performed in the past. So in order to express this meaning or to convey this idea of doing or performing a particular tense, a particular verb in the past or the present or the future, this is what we call in English the tense of the verb. So as I said, we have 12 tenses in English. And these are 4 past tenses, 4 present tenses, and 4 future tenses. Let me turn off the fan in order not to make any noise during the live stream. Okay. So, as I was just saying, we have 12 tenses in English. 4 of them are past, 4 of them are present, and 4 of them are future. But the thing is, the 4 past tenses, they have different meanings. And the 4 present tenses also vary or differ in their meanings. So, all the 12 tenses in English fall under 4 categories. They could be simple tenses, they could be continuous or progressive tenses, just like the tense we will be explaining in today's live. They could be perfect tenses, and they could be perfect continuous tenses. So your tense in English is either past, present, or future, and it's either simple or perfect or continuous or perfect continuous or perfect progressive. So having 3 categories, past, present, and future, and having 4 categories, vertically or horizontally. So vertically, we have past, present, future. Horizontally, we have simple, perfect, continuous, and perfect continuous. So 4 times 3 or 3 times 4, that gives you 12 tenses, and these are the 12 tenses that we have in English. This lesson is about one of these 12 tenses, and that's the present progressive or the present continuous. So why do continuous tenses, or why are continuous tenses also called progressive tenses? Well, as you can see the word continuous and the other word progressive, this means that the action was in the past going on, or is in the present going on, or will be in the future going on. The action in the past was in progress, it's in the present in progress, or it's in the future in progress. So having the verb in one of the continuous or the progressive tenses dictates that when the sentence was said or written, the action was still continuous, the action was still in progress, the action was still going on. And that's why we conjugate the verb in one of the continuous tenses or the progressive tenses to convey the idea that when the sentence was said or written, the action was in the middle, the action was still going on. Right. So talking about today's tense, which is the present continuous or the present tense, we need to understand when do we use this tense. Since it's a present tense, so it talks about an action that's happening in the present because it's called the present, right? But that's not the present simple. That's not the present perfect. This is the present continuous or the present progressive. When you use the present continuous or the present progressive, what you mean is that the action is happening right now at the time of speaking. It's happening right now at the time of speaking. So when you say, for example, I am eating, this example is an example of the present continuous, and it means that you are eating right now at the time of speaking. When you say, it's raining, this means that it's raining right now at the time of speaking. Excuse me. I had to clear my throat. And when you say, they are running, this means that the action of running happens right now or is happening right now at the time of speaking. So, I am eating, the action of eating is happening right now. It's raining, the action of raining is happening right now. They're running, the action of running is happening right now. From these three examples, we can deduce the structure or the form of the present progressive or the present continuous. And that's, as you can see, verb to be in its present forms, and these are am, is, and are, followed by the present participle of the verb, which is the verb ing form of the verb. As you can see, our lessons are cumulative, meaning that before you study lesson 4, which is today's lesson, you need to be aware of the content of lesson 3, the preceding lesson or the previous lesson. Why? Because each lesson is built on the content of the lesson before it. So today when I say that the present progressive or the present continuous needs the usage of am, is, and are, which are the present forms of verb to be or the verb be, you need to be familiar with that. And that was the topic of the preceding lesson or of the previous lesson, live lesson number 3. So whenever you study this series, what I urge you to do is that you take it in an increasing order, or you take it respectively, starting with lesson 3, for example, and then you do lesson 4, and then you do lesson 5, and so on. You don't do them randomly, because if you open any of these lessons, you will find that the content of the lesson requires you to be familiar with the contents of the lessons previous to it. Okay. So back to the present progressive or the present continuous. So you make the present continuous or the present progressive by using the present forms of verb to be. These are am, is, and are. And you follow them with the present participle of the verb, which is the ing form of the verb. Some people might ask, but the ing form of the verb is the gerund. Some people might say that the ing form of the verb is the gerund. Why do you call it the present participle? Well, you're partly correct. the ing form of the verb is called the gerund, but it can also be called the present participle, and the two terms are different. So although the gerund of the verb and the present participle of the verb take the same form, which is the bare infinitive of the verb with ing added to it, but they are not the same thing. The difference is that the gerund of any verb is a noun. It acts as a noun, whereas the present participle of the verb acts as a verb. So maybe physically, in the morphology, in the shape, in the form, both look the same, simply just the verb with the suffix ing added to it. But the meaning is profoundly different. I'll give you an example. When I say reading is my main hobby, reading is my main hobby. So reading here is the ing form of the verb read. But is it a gerund or a present participle? In this particular example, it's a gerund because it acts as a noun. As you can see, it says, or the sentence says, reading is my main hobby. So reading here is an activity, is a process, is a pastime, P-A-S-T-I-M-E. That's another word for a hobby. Your hobbies or your pastimes, they are the same thing. So talking about reading in this example, reading is a noun. Reading in this example is a noun, is an activity, is a hobby, or is a pastime. So reading is my main hobby. In this example, reading is a gerund because it's a noun. It's the subject of the sentence. But when I say, I am reading a nice novel these days, I am reading a nice novel these days, reading here is not a noun. Reading is a verb because it shows the action you're doing. It refers to the action you're performing. So in this particular example, the word reading is not a gerund. It's a present participle because it refers to a verb. When you say, I am reading a nice novel these days, this means that the action you're doing is the action of reading the novel. So although both words look the same, it was reading in the first example and it's reading in the second example, but they are different because the first one acted as a noun when we said, reading is my main hobby. And the second word, reading, is acting as a verb in the second example when we said, I am reading a nice novel these days. So physically, they look the same, reading in the first example and reading in the second example, but the first one is a gerund because it acts as a noun. Reading is my main hobby. And the second word, reading, is a present participle because it refers to the verb you're doing or the action you're performing when you said, I am reading a nice novel these days. So in the present progressive or the present continuous, which is the tense we're explaining today, you use the present forms of the verb be, these are am, is, and are, and you follow them with an ing form of the verb. But is this ing form a gerund or a present participle? Of course, it's the present participle because here it's a verb, it's not a noun. So when the ing form of the verb acts as an action or a verb that you perform, it's the present participle of the verb. But when it acts as a noun, it's the gerund form of the verb. Right, so as we said in lesson 3, in live lesson 3, the three present forms of verb to be are used with different subjects. Am is used with the subject pronoun I or the personal pronoun I. So we say I am. Is, we use it with the subject pronouns or the personal pronouns he, she, or it, or any noun that's equivalent to them. Are is used with the remaining subject pronouns or the remaining personal pronouns, and these are they, we, and you. So we say, I am, he is, she is, it is, we are, you are, they are. and you follow all these combinations with the present participle of the verb, which is the ing form of the verb acting as a verb, you have made the present continuous or the present progressive by doing this. Right, so let me read you some examples which I have prepared for you. You can say, for example, Maria is reading a newspaper. Maria is reading a newspaper. So Maria is a noun that's equivalent to the personal pronoun she. And the personal or the subject pronoun she goes with the verb to be form is. So we say Maria is reading a newspaper. Is this the present progressive or the present continuous? Yes, it is, because we're using verb to be in the present form. In this particular example, it's is, and we are following it with the ing form of the verb acting as a verb, so it's the present participle of the verb, which is reading. So Maria is reading a newspaper. There is no time expression in the sentence, as you can see. So the sentence entirely or in full says, Maria is reading a newspaper. The sentence begins with Maria and ends with a newspaper. There is a full stop, or in American English they call it a period. There is a period or a full stop at the end of the sentence. So the sentence says, Maria is reading a newspaper. When? There is no time expression in a sentence that tells me when is this action going on. Well, using the present continuous in itself dictates that the action is happening right now at the time of speaking. So I don't have to mention it. I don't have to say it in a sentence, or the time expression has to be mentioned. No, you just say, Maria is reading a newspaper. Just utilizing the present progressive or the present continuous necessitates, it makes it essential that the action is happening right now at the time of speaking. Another example, when you say, for instance, we're having dinner. When you say, we're having dinner, is this sentence in the present continuous? Yes, it is, because we have are, which is one of the present forms of verb to be, followed by the ing form of the verb, and that's having, the present participle of the verb. So verb to be in the present, am or is or are, followed by the present participle, the ing form of the verb, acting as a verb, you have made the present continuous or the present progressive, which necessitates that the action is happening right now. It's necessary that the action is happening right now at the time of speaking, even if there is no time expression mentioned in a sentence, because utilizing the present continuous in itself means that the action is happening right now at the time of speaking. So when you say, we're having dinner, this means that you're having dinner right now as we speak. Right, another example, you can say, the children are doing their homework. The children are doing their homework. Is this sentence in the present continuous? Yes, it is, because we have are, that's verb to be in the present, one of its forms, followed by doing, which is the ing form of the verb. So you have are doing. This is the structure, this is the form of the present continuous, which means that the action is happening right now at the time of speaking. So when I said this sentence, or when I say this sentence, the children are doing their homework, this means that they are doing it right now, even if I don't say now in the sentence, or if I don't say at the moment or at present. You don't have to mention these time expressions in your sentence, because utilizing the present continuous in itself necessitates that the action is happening right now at the time of speaking. So if you want to negate the sentence, meaning that you want to make the sentence negative by adding the word not, we said in the previous lesson, which was live lesson 3, when we were talking about the present forms of verb to be, that there are two contracted negative forms for verb to be. What do I mean by that? When you negate, when you make the sentence negative or the verb negative, you add the word not. So instead of he is, it becomes he is not. When you say we are, it becomes we are not, and so on. But this is the full form, which means that you are writing the words in full, no short forms. Contractions are the short forms. So when you say we are not, that's the full form. In the contracted form or the short form, you have two forms. So you can say we aren't, or you can say we're not. So the first one is spelled AREN''T. That's one word, by the way. Whenever you use an apostrophe, it means that all what's around the apostrophe is one word. So when you say aren't, it's a contracted form of two words, which are and not, but they are written as one word because there is an apostrophe in it. So you can say we aren't, or you can say we're not. That's WE''RE, that's one word, and then not is the second word. Also, instead of saying she is not, which is the full form, you can say either she isn't, that's ISN''T, or you can say she's not, that's SHE''S, that's one word, and then the word not. But for am, for the form of verb to be am, there is only one contracted negative form. That's I am not. There is nothing in English called I amn't. That's a complete mistake. That's a total error. You cannot say in English, I amn't. It doesn't exist in English. There is no such a thing in English. There is no such a word in English as amn't. There is only one contracted negative form for am, and that's I am not. But I amn't doesn't exist in English. Excuse me. Right, so I'll give you now some spelling rules. As you could see, in order to make the verb in the present continuous, it is necessary to add the suffix ing to the verb. But there are some spelling tricks that you have to learn in order to write correctly. If your verb ends with E, if your verb ends with the letter E, and you want to add ing to it, you must take out the E, you must remove the E before you add the ing. For example, a verb like take, this verb ends is in E. It's T-A-K-E. If you want to add ing to it, it becomes taking. You have to remove the E before you add the ing. So the spelling of taking becomes T-A-K-I-N-G. Another example for verbs which end in E, we have the verb come, C-O-M-E. As you can see, the last letter in the verb is E. In order to add ing to it, you've got to remove the E first, and then you add the ing. So it becomes coming, and the spelling of that is C-O-M-I-N-G. We remove the E. So the first spelling rule for the ing forms is that if your verb ends with an E, you have to remove the E before adding the ing. The second rule, if your verb ends with a consonant letter, and this consonant letter is preceded by a vowel letter, and then the letter before the vowel is a consonant. What do I mean by that? I mean that the last three letters in the verb are consonant, vowel, consonant. So it's a sandwich. You have consonant, and then a vowel, and then a consonant. So the last three letters in the verb are consonant, vowel, consonant. A vowel is one of the five letters, A, E, I, O, and U. These are the five vowels or the five vowel letters in English. Any other letters apart from these five letters are consonants. So if you have the last three letters in your verb with the combination C, V, C, that's consonant, vowel, consonant, and you want to add ing to the verb, what you need to do is that you need to double the last consonant in the verb. Let me give you an example. A verb like run. So the last letter is N, that's a consonant. The letter before it is a U, that's a vowel. And the letter before it is an R, that's a consonant. So the rule applies here, CVC. So in order to add ing to it, you have to double the consonant at the end. So you make it running with a double N. The same rule applies to the verb sit. Sit, which is sit down, S-I-T. As you can see, the last letter is T, that's a consonant. The letter before it is an I, that's a vowel, and the letter before it is an S, that's a consonant. So the three letters are C, V, C, it's that vowel sandwich. So to make the ing form of it, what you need to do is doubling the consonant at the end, so it becomes sitting with a double T. So running is spelled R-U-N-N-I-N-G, and sitting is spelled S-I-T-T-I-N-G. So this is the second spelling rule. The last or the third spelling rule about adding ing to verbs is when your verb ends in IE. For example, a verb like lie, that's L-I-E. As you can see, the last two letters of the verb are IE. How do you add ing to a verb like that? What you need to do is changing the IE into Y. So you change the IE at the end of the verb into the letter Y, and then you add ing. So lie, L-I-E, becomes lying, L-Y-I-N-G. Another verb with the same rule, tie, if you tie something, like you tie your shoelace, for instance, or you tie a rope. So tie is spelled T-I-E, and that ends in an I-E, as you can see. So to make the ing form of it, what you do is that you remove the IE and you replace it with a Y. So tie, T-I-E, after adding the ing becomes tying, and that's T-Y-I-N-G. So let's recapitulate briefly on the three spelling rules. If your verb ends in an E and you want to add ing to it, remove the E and then put the ing. Example, write, writing, write, W-R-I-T-E, writing, W-R-I-T-I-N-G. The second rule, if the last three letters in your verb are the combination consonant, vowel, consonants, that's CVC, and you want to add ing to it, what you need to do is that you double the consonant at the end of the verb. For example, a verb like swim, swim. So the last letter is M, the letter before it is I, and the letter before it is W. Those are CVC, consonant, vowel, consonant. So swimming contains a double M. You double the last consonant. It becomes SWIMMING. And the third spelling rule was, if your verb ends in IE, just like tie, for instance, and you want to add ing to it, what you need to do is changing the IE at the end of the verb into Y. So tie, T-I-E, becomes tying, T-Y-I-N-G. Right. And these rules are very important for any continuous tense because, as a matter of fact, in any continuous or progressive tense, you will need to add ing to the verb. You will need to add ing to the verb, whether we're talking about the past continuous, the present continuous, or the future continuous. In any continuous tense, it is inevitable that you have to add ing to the verb. So it was essential for you to understand these spelling rules so that you spell the verbs correctly when you add the suffix ing to them. Right, so we talked so far about using the present progressive in affirmative sentences. These are positive sentences, sentences which are not negative. And we talked about utilizing the present continuous or the present progressive in negative sentences. Now we shall move on to the last section of today's lesson, which is using the present progressive in interrogative sentences. What do I mean by interrogative sentences? It's a fancy word, but it means questions. So how do I use the present progressive in questions? As a rule of thumb in English, as a basic rule in English, in order to make a question, you have to put the verb before the subject. That's the rule. And this rule is applicable with any tense, with any of the 12 tenses. In order to make a question, you need to place the verb before the subject. It could be a main verb or it could be an auxiliary verb. So here we are going to apply the same rule in the present progressive. What you need to do in order to make a question is to place the auxiliary verb before the subject. You place the helping verb before the subject. So what is the auxiliary verb in the present continuous? It's am, is, and are. So verb to be forms, the verb to be present forms, am, is, and are. These are the auxiliary verbs of the present continuous. So in order to make a question in the present continuous, what you need to do is to place these three auxiliary verbs before the subjects. So instead of saying, for example, he is working. Let's say he is working. This is a positive or an affirmative sentence in the present continuous. In order to change it into a question, just put the auxiliary is before the subject. So it becomes, is he working? And of course, don't forget to put the question mark at the end of the sentence because this is a question. Excuse me. I have to clear my throat every now and then. Right, so instead of saying he is working, what you need to do is place the auxiliary verb before the subject, so it becomes, is he working, with a question mark at the end. Another example, you can say, they are walking. They are walking. That's a positive sentence in the present continuous. Just put the auxiliary before the subject, so it becomes, are they walking? Are they walking? Now you have changed the sentence from a positive sentence with a full stop or a period at the end into an interrogative sentence or a question with a question mark at the end, just by placing the auxiliary verb before the subject. But there is a very important point that we need to flag up here. When your question begins with am, is, and are, it's a yes or no question, meaning that it has to be answered either with yes or no. So when you say, are they walking? You have two possible answers here. Either yes they are or no they aren't. Yes they are or no they aren't. When you say, is he working? Is he working? That's a yes or no question because it's beginning with is. If the question begins with am or is or are, it's a yes or no question, and it's necessary for it to be answered with yes or no. So you say yes he is or no he isn't. Yes he is or no he isn't. You can also say no he's not. As we said earlier, in the negative contracted forms or the negative short forms, you have two forms: isn't, is not; aren't, are not. But for am, there is only one form in the negative, and that's I am not. There is no such a thing in English as I amn't. This word amn't doesn't exist in English. Right, so let's have some more examples on questions in the present continuous. You can say, for example, is it raining? Is it raining? Yes, it is. Or no, it isn't. Are you feeling okay? Are you feeling okay? Yes, I am, or no, I am not. As you can see, in all of these yes or no questions, we begin our question with the auxiliary verbs am, or is, or are. Does this mean that all the questions in the present continuous must be answered with yes or no? Absolutely not. You can have your question beginning with a WH word. What is a WH word? It's any of the question words that begin with the WH letters, like where, when, what, who, why, and so on. Even how. even the question word how, which doesn't begin with a WH combination of letters, but we also classify it with the WH words. So you can ask, for instance, why are you wearing a coat? Why are you wearing a coat? So this is a question in the present continuous. How did I know it's in the present continuous? Because I have why are, that's am or is or are you wearing, that's the ing form, wearing. So having am or is or are and the ing form of the verb means that the verb is in the present continuous. But the question in this one is not a yes or no question, because the question is not beginning with are. It could have been, are you wearing a coat? Yes, I am. No, I am not. But here it's, why are you wearing a coat? So I can answer this question by saying, because it's cold. I am wearing a coat because it's cold, or because I have a cold, or because it's raining, whatever the answer is. Right, so in the present continuous, you could have your question as a yes or no question beginning with auxiliary verbs am, is, and are, or you can have your question in the form of a WH question, meaning that it begins with one of the question words that begin with the combination of letters WH, like when, where, why, and which, and then you still, after them, have the auxiliary verbs am or is or are, followed by the ing form of the verb. Right, so as you can see in the title of the live stream, this is live lesson number 4. This is a series about English grammar, which means that all the videos in this live streams, or all the videos in this series of live streams, will be tackling English grammar. In the previous lesson, which is lesson 3, we explained the different forms of verb to be. That was lesson 3. In this lesson, which is lesson 4, we have explained the present progressive tense or the present continuous tense, which is using am and is and are. These are the forms of verb to be that we explained in the previous lesson. So as you can see, these lessons are cumulative. Cumulative means that every lesson depends on the lesson before it. The contents of every lesson, for you to be able to understand them, you have to be familiar with the contents of the lesson preceding to it, or before it, or previous to it. So what I urge you to do, what I encourage you to do, is whenever you study this course, this grammar course, I advise you to take it from the beginning. You start with the very first lesson, and then you keep working through the lessons in ascending order. Lesson 3, then lesson 4, then lesson 5, and so on, in order for you to be able to get the hang of all the contents of the lessons, because as I say, they are all depending on each other, they're all built upon each other. In the coming lesson, in the upcoming live lesson tomorrow, we will be explaining another tense, which is the present simple tense. So today we tackled the present progressive or the present continuous. In tomorrow's live stream, we will be discussing the present simple tense. And then at the end of tomorrow's live stream, we will be drawing a comparison between the two tenses. We will be comparing and contrasting the two tenses. Which one should I use in which situation or in which context? So after we finish explaining the present simple tomorrow, we will hold this comparison between the two tenses, when and why to use the present progressive or the present continuous, when and why to use the present simple, so you can use the two tenses effectively. At the end of the live stream, I'd like to thank all of you who have listened attentively to my explanation today, and I wish that these lessons, that these online courses are useful for you, are beneficial to you, whether in your academic studies, in your professional careers, or whatever, and even if you're immigrating. So I've made this channel for any learner of English. You might need English at school. You might need English at university or college. You might need it for professional purposes, for work, for being able to write emails, go through job interviews, write reports, hold presentations, give presentations, attend meetings. Or you can even need English if you are immigrating or traveling to another country to live there or to study or to work there. So I assume that the videos on this channel are beneficial for any learner of English. And these videos tackle all the aspects of the language. You can find on the channel videos about vocabulary, pronunciation, grammar, even tips to improve your skills like reading, writing, listening, and speaking. So I really would appreciate it if you subscribed in the channel, if you interacted with the content by liking it, by sharing it, and by leaving comments down there in the comment box. And I read all the comments, I respond to them. And if you have any special requests about certain topics that you would like me to cover in the upcoming videos, being live or recorded, please do not hesitate and feel free to write comments for me down there, making the suggestions you want to make, and I'll make sure that I respond to them all the time. I don't want to go longer than that. I'd like to thank you very much for your attentive listening, as I said, and I look forward to our next lesson tomorrow, our next live lesson tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of your day, and goodbye.